Hey guys, what's going on? This is Justin with the Contreras family. Today I want to talk to you guys about preparing for your move to Okinawa, Japan. So myself, a couple months ago, I received orders from a monitor and I was really excited about my move to Okinawa, Japan. Now, when I got those orders, yes, I was excited. However, now I was kind of confused as well and kind of nervous because I really didn't know what to do besides, scheduling flights or anything like that. I found out that I had to do so much as far as scheduling an overseas screening, making sure my family gets approved. So hopefully in today's video you find very useful content to help you have more of a clear path on what it is exactly you need to do. So first off, if you have any members in the EFMP program, and I'm talking about your dependents, what you want to do is talk to the EFMP sponsor in your unit and find out if those services are offered in Okinawa, Japan, depending on what the need is. Another thing that you want to do, like as soon as you complete that, is start the overseas screening suitability process. So what this is, it's a medical, dental, and even a school screening form if you have school-age children. So each dependent is going to have their own package. What I had to do was call the overseas screening section at the Naval Medical Center on Camp Lejeune. And from there, they prepared the packages for me. I went over there to pick it up, and I delivered each one to their own medical provider, so their primary care manager. So at that point, the primary care manager, they're making sure if your dependent is qualified to go to Japan, because the last thing is, you don't want your family member to go through any types of hardships while you're in Okinawa, Japan. You don't want to get over there, and if they're asthmatic, I'm not saying that Okinawa, Japan doesn't treat asthmatics, but if they're asthmatic and Okinawa doesn't offer it, you don't want to get put in a position where that dependent is going through extreme hardship. Now, this process, the suitability screening process, it sounds quick, but it's really not. So let's say your family member has had history. Now you got to collect that paperwork to ensure that they're cleared from whatever condition they might have had before, or they're at least able to sustain when they go over to Okinawa, Japan. So that could take some time, especially if you've moved around in the past. Another thing you got to worry about is the dental portion. So depending on what's been done, I got family members that have braces, have gone through surgery. So it sounds like it was a little bit complicated, but it's just a matter of them writing off and saying that, hey, they're on track, they're going to be good. So that's that. Next, again, for the school-age children, you have to take that package over to their schools and school officials fill out, because if your child's in the IEP program or any type of program that they need accommodated, that's when they fill that out, they annotate that, and from there, the schools in Okinawa, Japan are able to track, okay, this is what's going on, we're going to be able to accommodate your child or not. So there's that. Now this took me about 2.5 months to finally get all complete there, between medical, dental, and the schools. Afterwards, I had to get it routed to my chain of command, and from there that was a quick process, maybe 2 days, it got signed off. So the reason why it took so long for that package to get done for all my family members, I had one family member who was going through surgery and had to recover, and I had to have the surgeons write off on that. On top of that, the whole pandemic was going on with COVID-19. Businesses closed down, schools closed down, so now I'm trying to get a hold of people. So again, this is one of the very first things you want to make sure you take care of as soon as you get those orders. So upon the completion of this package, you take it back over to the overseas screening section at the hospital, and from there, they're going to communicate with Okinawa, Japan. And from there, Okinawa, Japan will be able to tell you, hey, your family is cleared or they're not cleared. And they're going to provide a letter to you. As soon as you get that letter, you want to turn it into IPAC, and then from there, they are able to tell DMO, like, hey, this family is eligible to buy tickets, and also they're tracking that Okinawa, Japan is ready to receive your family. So that's that. One of the most important things in the process, I've seen it where families have had to get their orders modified because they weren't able to meet those time hacks, and that's why it's so important for you to make sure you have that urgency. No one's going to be urgent about your paperwork than you are. So yes, leave it in their hands, leave it for them to take care of, but there's nothing wrong with doing a follow-up. Whenever you drop it off somewhere, hey, how long does it take for this paperwork to complete? If they tell you a week, maybe call them 1 to 2 days before, like, hey, I'm just following up. You told me you're going to be able to get this paperwork done in a week, and I'm just making sure we're on track. Because I've seen it in the past where packages get lost, or they don't meet that time hack they told you they were going to do, and it kind of just reminds them, like, oh, I forgot, I gotta take care of them. So that's what you want to do. Make sure you stay on top of it. Luckily, it didn't happen to me, but that's because, again, I had that urgency, my wife had that urgency, and we're able to keep things moving along. Another thing that you want to do as a service member is complete your outbound interview. Why is this so important? Why are you worried about it so far ahead? The reason why is because it gives you an idea of your entitlements as far as how much money are you going to be getting. Are you planning on taking leave? Which family members are going with you? Are you taking pets? What about your household goods? How are you moving that over there? It kind of brings all these things into light that you should be considering. Okay, we're going to move on to what you should be taking care of afterwards. So again, we're talking about upon receipt of orders. Another thing you want to do is, if you have pets, it's important that you start that paperwork immediately. I'm going to provide some links that are very useful at the end of this video. I want you to click on those links, especially if all these topics that I'm talking about, you're going to be able to see it in more thorough detail on what it is exactly that you got to do. But let's go back to pets. If you go to MCCS Okinawa, their website, they have a no-kidding checklist on things that need to get done. They also go over the country's guidelines on what you're allowed to have as a pet and not. So it's imperative that you get on that, because there's actually time obligations that you got to meet for that. For example, your pet may have to get rabies shots, and they have to have it, let's say it's, again, I'm just throwing examples right here, but maybe they get a shot, 1 month, and exactly 60 days later they have to take another shot, and after that they got to do an antibody test. So there's so much thing that has to get done, plus there's paperwork that needs to get filled out, pretty much saying your pet is cleared to go over to Okinawa, Japan. So it's important that you stay on top of that. Another thing that you want to do that I wish I would have done in the very beginning is request a sponsor. Now, I really didn't know how this deal worked out, but after doing some research, I finally found out. Luckily, by that time, I got a message on Facebook like, hey, are you coming to this unit? And I replied, yeah, and they told me that they were going to be my sponsor. But this was more towards the latter half of me getting ready for Okinawa, Japan. Had I had them in the beginning, it would have made things so much smoother, because nobody knows more of what's going on than your sponsor has. Because your sponsor, think about it, they're already in Okinawa, Japan, they've gone through that process, and on top of that, there's actually sponsorship training that they attend to make sure that they're able to give you the best guidelines and the most current guidelines as well. So the way that you do this is you go to your unit's S1 and you submit a NAVMAC 11799. Pretty much say that, hey, I'm going to this unit over in Okinawa, Japan, and I'm requesting. It goes over to the IPAC over there. The IPAC over there communicates with that unit that you're going to, the receiving unit, and from there they let them know that, hey, you have a member heading over to Japan on this date. That way that sponsor can make contact with you in order for you to start getting guidance on the things that you should be doing. Another thing that you can do is go to that MCCS Okinawa website, and there's actually a section there for sponsors. But if you go there, there's an email address that I'm going to provide again at the end of this video. You can email it there. That way it kind of expedites the process for you to sponsor. Again, a sponsor is going to be your best friend. They're a godsend. They tell you exactly the things that you should be worried about. Now, let's go over things that you should be looking at within the 3 to 6 month time window. So if you haven't already, look over your personal finances. There's a lot of things that I had to consider. For example, I'm paying a mortgage. So am I going to sell my house, or am I going to rent it out to somebody? Maybe I want to do research on property managers. Who's a good property manager in the area? Do I have vehicles? Do I need to sell vehicles? Am I going to store vehicles? Am I still paying vehicles? Do I have a vehicle leased? So there's a lot of things that you have to start considering. And on top of that, maybe close out some accounts on the way. So hey, I'm close to paying this off. I'm gonna pay it off. That way I don't have to worry about it when I get over there. Or hey, do my web orders cancel whatever I'm currently obligated to pay out for that company? For example, I had a security system that I was making some payments on, and because I had my web orders, I was able to cut that contract. Same thing with my cell phone, and same thing with the leased vehicle that I had. So that's why it's so important for you to look at that kind of stuff, do your research, and see what you're entitled to as an active duty family. Next thing you want to do is apply for passports. My family and I, we already had tourist passports. However, when looking at the web orders, it states that you have to get no-fee passports. Now, there was a little bit of leniency because of the whole COVID-19 pandemic that was going on, pretty much saying that if you have tourist passports, hey, it's okay for you guys to fly with that. But in normal terms, where there isn't any type of restrictions, you're expected to get those no-fee passports. So, a little bit about this. So once you talk to IPAC, so you're going to talk to IPAC once you get your outbound interview complete, and also once your area clearance is complete. IPAC is going to help you fill out let me get the form. It's a DD form 1056. So this form right here is pretty much your application for a no-fee passport. On top of that, each individual dependent is going to have to do another form, which is offered by, if you go to the DMO office, they'll tell you the exact website that you need to go to fill that out for each family member. This is so imperative for you to start because you never know how long the passport agency is taking. When this whole COVID-19 thing was going off, the passport agency was closed for a couple months. So I was literally fighting time to ensure that my family gets those passports. I was told that I was going to receive those passports a month after I had already left to Okinawa, Japan. So that means I would have had to pay somebody to send me those passports over there. Luckily, I got it a month before. But again, it's just a matter of having that sense of urgency, continue calling, asking questions, and always know what the follow-up is. So after you hang up that phone, what's the next step? If you don't know what the next step is, make sure you don't get off that phone and find out what that next step is. Another thing that you want to start doing is go to move.mil. Find out your entitlements for shipment. And on top of that, I'd also suggest going to the housing website for Okinawa, Japan. That way you have an idea of the square footage that you're going to get. The square footage in Japan is going to be a whole lot smaller than it is in the US. So myself, what I had to do is I had to put stuff in storage, and I also sold a bunch of stuff in order to make sure that when I get to Japan, we're not clustered in that house with a bunch of stuff. So you're able to put stuff in storage, vehicles, furniture, things that you know that you're not gonna need. You're also entitled to an express shipment. Pretty much anything under a certain amount of weight, you have to go to the website to see what you're entitled to. They're able to make sure it gets to Japan as soon as possible, and it's going to beat your household goods shipment. So if there's any items that you feel is of high importance for you, make sure it gets on the express shipment. So I got here right in the beginning of July, and I'm supposed to get my express in the beginning of August. The rest of my shipment is not supposed to get to me until September, and that's the expected, the estimated date. So that's something that you got to talk about with your spouse, your dependents, and see what it is that I need to bring over there. Another thing I would recommend doing is also, if you are renting a place, is talk to your landlord. See, maybe have him do a little pre-inspection. Hey, if I was to cut my contract, what is it that I got to do to make sure I get my deposit back? What do I need to take care of to make sure that I leave in good terms? So those are things that you want to ask yourself, ask your landlord, and just get yourself mentally, physically, and financially ready to start making some decisions on that action. All right, let's talk a little bit about what you want to do within the 1 to 2 month time window. So if you've sold your vehicle already, so if you've already put your vehicle up for sale, you want to make sure that you turn in your tags to the DMV to avoid any unnecessary fees. I've, being in the military 12 and a half years, one time I ran into a situation where I moved out of state. My tags expired when I was out of state, and because I was out of state and I didn't return my tags, I saw a bill in the mail from the DMV. Luckily, I turned it in. They were able to waive whatever I owed, and that was that. But I can only imagine it's going to be a little hard to do if you're overseas and those tags are in storage. So make sure you find out what it is that you got to do with DMV to make sure that you're paying unwanted fees. So that's that. And since we're talking about tags, and I already talked about finances, what are you doing with your vehicles? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to, if you have a lease, are you going to break the lease? If you own the vehicle already, you're not making any payments, are you going to store it? What I did, so I had a vehicle that I still owed money on it. I ended up putting it on Facebook about 2 to 3 months out. At that point, it gave my vehicle good exposure to the market, and I started getting inquiries about my vehicle, and I was able to get some competitive offers. Now, I ended up making just a little over even, so I broke even and I got a little bit of money, but again, that's because I started doing that way ahead of time. So make sure you're doing the same thing. That way, you're not put in a desperate situation where all you're trying to do is get rid of the vehicle, and from there you're trying to take money out of your pocket to pay off whatever's left. So it's something you want to consider. Another thing that you can do is start applying for housing in Okinawa. So it's the housing in Okinawa is ran by the Air Force. There's an actual website that I'll provide the link to at the end of this video. If you go to that link, there's different programs that allow you to get a house before you even step foot in Okinawa, or at least have something like in the pot ready. Like, okay, these are the options that I have going into Okinawa. I took care of I took advantage of a program called the Port to Final Residence program. What this was is between myself, between the housing office, and between my sponsor. My sponsor was able to represent me once I signed some forms. They did a tour of 3 different housing locations. They actually did a total of 4 housing locations for me because they wanted to make sure that I was satisfied with the place I was moving into. They did a virtual tour, and on top of that, they took pictures. So, I simply got on Facebook Messenger, we FaceTimed, he showed me around, took pictures at the end, and from there I let him know, hey, out of all these options, this is the housing that I want to move into. And from there, I fill out some papers, and then boom, housing locks that house on for you. That way, you're able to have a place already whenever you arrive in Okinawa. So it's a very good program. I would definitely look into it. Now, if you're trying to move into that housing before you step foot in Okinawa, so live there. Right now, again, I'm going through the whole COVID-19 thing, like as far as the ROM. So I came to Okinawa, and right now I'm in a hotel for 14 days. As soon as that's complete, I can finally go into my housing. So if you're trying to go straight to housing, just make sure that there's furniture already ready for you. And the base offers loaner furniture, so if you do this well ahead of time, that means you're going to go straight into your housing. If they're not able to lock on that loaner furniture for you, you're going to have to stay at a hotel. So it's just some things to consider. Another thing that you want to be able to do is start talking to DMO about scheduling your flights, purchasing those flights, and then communicating with your sponsor to do that. Because once your sponsor identifies what your flight dates are, he's going to be able to schedule a hotel for you. He's going to be able to schedule, if you're planning to go to housing, he's going to be able to schedule getting loaner furniture installed in your house. So there's a lot that you want to be able to consider. On top of that, you can start the planning as far as, hey, when is my leave going to start? When is my family going to get here before I leave the States? So there's a lot of things of why it's so important to know that date. So, keep constant communication with DMO until you have that itinerary already set for you. And talk to them about the steps. So never leave DMO without knowing, hey, what's the next step I need to do? Because, again, you don't want to leave the place lost, because I've seen it. where people go into DMO, they think they have a flight, they walk away, next thing you know, they're supposed to fly out in a couple days and nothing was ever locked on. So what I would do is ask for a receipt of the flight being scheduled in the form of an itinerary, and just stay on top of it. Alright, next thing that you want to do is, and this is within the 45-day time window, is make sure that your government travel charge card is activated and make sure that it's not going to expire while you're in transit. Something that you don't want happening is you get to the hotel you're supposed to stay at, you're trying to purchase food for you and your family, and that card gets declined because it was never activated to begin with, or it expired, a couple days into transit. That's something you don't want to happen. So make sure you stay in constant communication with your S1. Call the city bank just to make sure everything's up and running. Just get ahead of it. You don't want to take care of stuff while you're stuck in an airport, thousands of miles away from your detaching duty station, and now you're trying to handle something and you and your family are stranded. That's a nightmare. That's something that you don't want to deal with. Another thing you want to do is ensure you have all your important documents. These documents include your birth certificate, your social security card, your area clearance, school transcripts if you have kids that are in school, financial documents, legal documents, medical, dental records. You're going to know best what it is exactly that you need because every family has a different circumstance. So whatever it is, make sure you get it all organized. I created a binder to have all those documents, and there was actually a couple times while I was in a move where I needed something, like for example a hard copy of my physical orders when I was getting on the plane. Pet records, that was something that I had handy as well because just expect that someone's going to need it somewhere along the line. And don't put it in your luggage, put it on your carry-on. So bring it in your carry-on, always have it on you because you don't want to lose those documents. And then what you want to do as well is talk to your bank, your financial institution. Here's why. Because you don't want to travel and you're trying to make a personal transaction with your card and it get declined because they weren't tracking of you leaving the area. The reason why is because banks, they do a lot of preventive measures for identity theft. So if you make a transaction in Seattle and you're living in North Carolina, that raises red flags for them and that card's going to be locked and it's going to decline. So just get ahead of it. Give them a heads up. Hey, I'm traveling out of the country these days and I'm actually going to be leaving the country. That way they give you the best guidance and even tips on what you should be doing to prevent identity theft. Another thing is talk to your cell phone provider. At this 45-day time window, I had one cell phone provider and I canceled it and I went with Sprint because Sprint has SoftBank and their service is excellent out here. Back in North Carolina, Sprint wouldn't be so excellent, but here in Japan, it works. It's the best service out here. So just do your research, talk to your sponsor, find out what the best cell phone provider is at the time out here, and plan accordingly. Again, those orders are going to be able to cancel your current contract, and you're going to just be able to plan better and get somebody like I did. I went with Sprint. Lastly, ensure your bills are taken care of. So myself, I made sure my utilities bills were covered. On top of that, I even got a deposit back, or I'm going to get a deposit back from my utilities bills. I made sure, internet was already canceled and I already turned in the routers, the modems, whatever it is, back to them. That way I'm not getting these random charges. So just make sure you go through all your bills, find out what it is that you need to take care of, and just get it done. You don't want to worry about it when you're thousands of miles away. It's a 13-hour difference in time zone, so you're trying to call them while it's in the middle of the day over here. It's nighttime, everything's close over there. So just make sure that you handle that stuff before you leave. Well, guys, that's pretty much all that needs to be said. Again, I'm going to put a bunch of useful links at the end of this video. If there's anything that you take from this video, is go to mccsokinawa.com. This website has a lot of great tools that you can use to make sure that it prepares you for this move. All right, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you smash that subscribe button and stay tuned for more of our videos. Thank you.